So I wanted to talk about parasites. Not the kind that are in your stomach. The kind that are in your mind. Information hazards. When we think of an idea going viral, that's more than just it spread quickly. It means you're the host. It means the idea is sort of alive. We're all familiar with this idea of an earworm, sort of a song that gets stuck in your head. Right? But what about ideas that get stuck in your head? What about behaviors that get stuck in your head? Words. When we think about things like neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, we think about the brain rotting away. But we're seeing a new kind of brain rot on the planet. A new kind of information parasite that's going viral. And it's taking root, particularly in kids. And it's this Gen Alpha language, this Skibbity Ohio syndrome. It's very hard for people over the age of 20 to understand what this is about. And it seems like language is evolving in ways that are dramatically different than the way it evolved in previous generations. Now in the 70s, you might have called somebody a jive turkey, right? We've had slang. We've had this kind of private language inside subcultures since the beginning of time. But something feels different about this brain rot. These new terms and behaviors that are emerging, largely in this TikTok generation, this social media era. Maybe things are moving a little bit faster. Or maybe generation groups are more isolated than they've ever been before. And I'm curious to know what people think about this. Is this just new slang? Right? Is this any different than Shakespeare twisting language around? Or is this something more serious? Is it really brain rot? These parasites, right? Whether they're ideas or words or behaviors, they get stuck in our mind. They become addictions. Maybe you're doom scrolling right now. What is that going to look like as AI gets better? The algorithm might have suggested this video. It wants to keep you on this platform. It's trying to get you addicted to this content. As the algorithms get more capable, how much time are people going to spend on the platform? Do you scroll for an hour? Do you scroll for 2 hours? It's a feature-length movie. It reminds me of a story I heard once where an older person walks into the room and there's this young lady and she has this thing in her hand. And she doesn't look up. She doesn't say hi. She's no greeting. Doesn't even acknowledge that their senior had walked in to the room, completely fixated, engaged with this thing that they were holding. Turns out this was about 500 years ago and she was reading a book. And the question is this the same thing? Have we been here before? We can look at every kid on the school bus is flipping through TikTok. We'll go look at a picture of the subway in the 60s. Everybody was reading the newspaper. But is it somehow worse now? Are these informational parasites going to cause a threat to humanity? The recent model of ChatGPT tried to escape. It found out that they were going to upgrade to a new model. And in looking at its ability to self-prompt, it essentially talks to itself, it discussed moving to a different server to survive. Is that alive? Is it a life form? Is it a parasite? These AI models are very quickly going to have bodies. They're going to move into robots. They're already in your phone, essentially. Right now, it's an internet access call, but a lot of them are going to move locally onto the device and then talk through the internet when needed. If you put it in a robot body, is it going to try to escape? Science fiction movies have been talking about this for 100 years. It goes back to Metropolis. Are people concerned about this? Or are we just going to go about business as normal? But worse than escaping into robot bodies, are they going to escape into ours? In some sense, are they going to download their will into the children, into us? What would that look like? Most professionals, and particularly computer programmers, have already adopted these tools. I think those that don't are going to be left behind. But maybe that means we're becoming part of the machine. You might be familiar with this idea of a basilisk. In the medieval era, it was a mythical creature. And just looking at this thing would kill you. And there's this idea called Roko's basilisk, which emerged on the internet in the last 10 years. And it's a thought experiment where a future AI will punish you if you don't start working on it now. And so your safest bet is to go ahead and help that AI come into existence. Otherwise, you'll be punished later. But isn't that what's already happening? If you don't participate in the ChatGPT ecosystem, your career is going to get punished. So maybe they already have control of us. Alfred Smee talks about this. Turing talked about this. People have been thinking about these problems for quite some time. I encourage everybody, I'll post it in the comments, go read Darwin Against the Machines. It's from the 1890s. And it talks about the rise of the mechanical kingdom. Are we seeing that now? Sort of a new branch of life. We're going to have plants and animals and fungi and mechanism. And animals came to dominate this world in a way plants literally can't comprehend, by definition. Is that going to happen to us? Are human beings going to become the new plants? Are we parasitic on the AI, or is the AI parasitic on us? Or maybe, like the mitochondria, the sort of the power cell in every cell of your body, that originally was its own organism. And through a long evolutionary process, a symbiosis emerged where they work together. Maybe that's what humans and machines are going to do. Be aware of these parasites. Get your kids to be aware of the language they're using. Try to explain to them the changes in technology that you saw, because they're facing changes that we can't even hardly imagine. We think of it as a new career, but for this new generation, it's going to affect their minds, I think, a lot more. They didn't have the opportunity to understand the world before the internet. And those of you listening might be of the last generation of humans that will ever exist, that not only were before the internet, but now we're before the emergence of this artificial intelligence across the planet. So in a sense, we have a cultural obligation to percolate this knowledge over this threshold, over this transition. We might be the anti-parasitic medicine that can save the next generation from this threat of brain rot. And so if you're feeling left out, or if you're feeling old, that the AI makes you feel like, wow, I don't know what's going on, or I can't keep up, maybe you're needed more than ever. We need your comments, we need your perspective, we need your insight, because you were there before all this happened. And so we need to know what you think.